Go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Let me share this really fast, sorry. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Okay. Yeah, so let's start by just doing a short meditation to maybe ground ourselves, to arrive with, come home to ourselves in a sense, and just arrive in this time and this place and in this body, this mind. So just allow your gaze to turn inwards. So usually it's always pointed outwards, and we're obsessed with the outer world, the world of things and phenomena and people and places and situations. So see if you can just allow your attention to turn 180 degrees towards your own mind, towards your own body. And sometimes it's helpful to just rest the attention on the body, becoming aware of being embodied, maybe scanning through, noticing if there are any areas where we hold tension. And just allowing those places to just soften. If you want, you can use the out breath. So breathe in, and then as you breathe out, you just follow that natural tendency of release, of letting go. And use that as a way of just relaxing and allowing the body to settle, allowing the respiration to settle. The same way you can gently release thoughts. Just obsessive, compulsive thinking that goes on most of the time. See if you can just release the grasp of this constant turmoil of thinking. As you breathe out again, just release and let go of all the thoughts that are present in your mind at this moment. And then with that, we can just end this very short initial meditation, open our eyes and return our attention to each other. Yeah, so I thought today I thought I would speak initially a little bit on I guess emptiness, I guess you could say, but the fact that the way we perceive reality isn't completely realistic, and the reason for that being that we kind of project onto reality things that aren't actually there, and then we grasp onto those things and we expect some of them to bring us happiness, and we're afraid that some of them will bring us suffering and pain. So then we get into this whole mess of grasping onto certain things and rejecting others, and it all gets very imbalanced. And from a Buddhist perspective, all our suffering actually arises from this way of misperceiving things that we have around us, but also ourselves, and projecting onto phenomena and things and situations and people and places like a solidness or a concreteness or an inherent existence that those things really don't possess or have in the first place. So in Buddhist teachings, you usually make this distinction between emptiness of phenomena and emptiness of self. So it's realizing that the self is empty of inherent existence, or realizing that everything else is empty of inherent existence. And there's some difference in which one you should go about analyzing first, whether you should start with analyzing the selflessness or the emptiness of the I or the self, the me, or if you should start by looking at all other phenomena. But anyway, so today I thought we could start with all other phenomena and leave the self for a second. So just as a way of starting, if you think of a thing, just anything, so just bring something to mind, and then whatever, and I won't ask you now, but whatever that thing that you're thinking about is, I can confidently say that thing does not actually exist. It exists in one way only, and that is as a mental label, as a convention, as a name, and that's whatever you're thinking about right now. That's the only way that thing or that phenomena actually exists. And in Buddhist philosophy, you would say it exists as a mere name, or as a mere label, or in name only, etc. Which is that's kind of a shocking idea. But if we just we take anything, so we could take something. Let's take the Milky Way, for example. So that's a thing. It's the Milky Way. So we think about it. It's a big thing. It's a very big thing, but it's a thing. But the only way that thing, the Milky Way, the galaxy that we inhabit, the only way it exists is as a name, because it's actually quite obvious. If you look into it, you see that there's billions of stars and billions of comets and this and that and the other. So there's a lot of stuff there, but none of that's a thing. None of that's the Milky Way. It becomes the Milky Way once we come up with that name and just put it on the totality of all the stuff that's, the trillions and billions of celestial bodies or whatever that's, floating around out there. Then it becomes a thing, the Milky Way. But it exists only as a convention. And that's, when we talk about conventional reality or relative reality. So Milky Way, it exists as a convention and only as a convention. And that's true for, anything. If you say the ball or the guy over there, or for that matter, the universe, anything that is a thing is just exists in this way as a label or a convention. Because then we can break it down further. So there obviously in the Milky Way there are all these planets. So we have planet Earth. Again, planet Earth, it's a thing, but that thing is only our convention, our label. And then the Earth consists of a lot of stuff. And I'm part of Earth, this body right here. But the body of Martin, also again, is a thing, but it's also again just a label, a convention, a name, because we can break that down, and eventually we come to molecules, and then atoms, and electrons, and quarks, and I think that's about as far as I think. Yeah, quarks are. I think that's the smallest things that physicists feel that they have, identified or found. But even there, I saw this. There's a famous quantum physicist. I think it is. His name is Sean Carroll. He's written all these books. He's giving talks, and so I saw. I don't know. Maybe it was an interview with him, and he said that, well, electrons. We can measure them and do fun things with them, but they're really models. They're just, you could say, they're ways of speaking. And I found it completely fascinating that a modern physicist use those terms, that an electron is just a way of speaking, because I know that this man is a physical realist, so he truly believes in an objectively existing world that is, separate from him. That is definitely his worldview. But so he's kind of expecting that physicists will keep looking, and they will find something. They'll find maybe the quark then. But I think he would agree that quarks probably also is just a way of speaking. It's a model. It's not the fundamental reality. So then they talk about superstrings or mathematical Hilbert spaces, or whatever. They keep looking for the thing that is actually real and actually out there, but from a Buddhist perspective, they're doing that in vain, because whatever you look for, that thing you find, again, it's just going to be a name, a convention, or using the words of this renowned physicist, just a way of speaking. I'll keep. Martine, this might be a bit of a tangent.
I'm sorry, Martin. Sorry. What about love? Is that just merely a label?
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's analyze what is love. Give me a definition of love.
I say it would be an emotion. Maybe not. What is loving kindness? What is I don't know.
Yeah, so from a Buddhist perspective, there are three levels of what's called dependent origination. So everything exists as a dependently arisen phenomena. So, and the first level of that is it has causes and conditions. So, you know, I don't know, I'm sitting in a car at the moment, which is a bit weird, but that's where I am. So, and this car, you know, it came about from causes and conditions. You know, it has metal, and that metal came from some galaxies exploding and whatever. So everything in this car is coming from a set of causes and conditions that, you know, they came together, and then they be kind of, that's the car then. So that's one level. And then the next level is that things have parts. So for example, if I take my hand, it consists of, it has fingers, and it has, you know, the palm of the hand, and it has bones inside. So it has different parts, and without those parts, there wouldn't be a hand. Also, without the causes and conditions that created, you know, the carbon or the water or the fats or whatever that are, you know, so there are causes and conditions that creates the hand. There are parts of which the hand consists. And then the third level is, which is the really subtle and really, really mind-blowing one, is that the last level is this mental labeling, this this when we name it a hand, it becomes a hand. You know, if a cat looks at it, or if a lion looks at my hand, it won't be labeling it hand, it might be labeling it, you know, part of lunch or something, you know. So it's so there's this, when we label something, it becomes, you know, that thing. So then we can come back to love. So does love have causes and conditions? Are there things that must come together for there to be love? You know, if you talk about romantic love, there needs to be two people there, maybe.
I'm thinking watching a sunset, you know, and feeling love in your heart, or
yeah. But then, in a sense, that love, in a sense, is dependent on the sunset that you're loving, or that is triggering this emotion of love. And there certainly has to be a mind there to experience the love, and you're also probably experiencing the love as a physical manifestation somehow in your body. You know, there's a warm sensation in your stomach, or there's a tingling in your chest, or, you know, there are all these things that are happening, and then we label, and there might be certain kinds of thoughts, definitely certain kinds of emotions, and then we place the label love on top of all of that. And if you take away any of those causes and conditions, if you take away any of those parts, and even if you take away the label love, because potentially maybe someone else would label it differently. So then take away any of those things, and love disappears, because it wasn't there inherently. So this doesn't mean that, it does not mean that love does not exist. It just means, like everything else, ultimately it's dependent on a mind labeling. Yeah. So I think,
yeah.
Is that the same as just awareness, labeling and awareness, or are they not independent of each other?
Well, yeah, I mean, awareness, if awareness might be a synonym of consciousness, I guess, or mind, maybe. So this third level of dependent origination, which is the labeling, the naming, that's definitely dependent on consciousness. So without consciousness, there could be no labeling, and it's also that fundamental split between like me over here, the subject, and the object over here. So now at a very fundamental level, I separate myself from everything else, and then I start labeling everything that I perceive. And that's, in a sense, that's literally how, from a Buddhist perspective, that's literally how the world is created. That's how the world comes about. That's like the seed of, it's the seed of samsara. It's the seed of nirvana, depending on where where you happen to live. I definitely live in samsara, in this mess of problems and suffering and all of that. But that suffering comes about because consciousness does this kind of fundamental split where it starts objectifying and naming and labeling, and then from that seed, all the multitudes of all the worlds and realms of samsara arise. So this extremely fundamental function of consciousness is this labeling, but I wouldn't say that they're necessarily the same, because they also say that a Buddha, an enlightened being, would be free from this dualistic illusion. They can kind of perceive the labeling that we're doing, so they can kind of perceive the mess that we're perceiving, but from their perspective, there isn't this imputation upon reality of things that ultimately aren't real or existent. So was that sounded like a lot of rambling to me, but that's
very heavy.
Yeah.
So so when you're labeling something, that's not the same as projection, then? Or are you projecting when you're labeling? Because you're perceiving it from an outside place, and then you're looking at it and having your own thought about what it is. You put a label on it, but I'm assuming projection is a little more than that, but
Yeah, and I don't like, projection isn't necessarily a Buddhist term, and so I wouldn't be able to place the concept of projection necessarily in anywhere in like Buddhist psychology or philosophy, but yeah, it's definitely, we are definitely projecting onto the world things that are not there all the time, and that is in a sense, that is the labeling. One example would be, and also maybe to bring all of this down to a bit of a more of a practical, relevant level. So if I perceive someone out there, so I'm sitting here in Australia, but let's say President Biden, for example. So that's a person that people perceive, and some people love him. They think he's the best thing since sliced bread. Amazing guy, fantastic. Some other people hate him. He's the devil incarnate. He's horrible. He's a menace to the world and the planet. There is no one worse ever. And obviously, poor Joe is from his own side, he's neither of those things. He's so the Joe Biden that I would experience it's like my Joe, it's my projection, it's my story, and the Joe that someone else, maybe like one of those MAGA people, when their Joe is a different Joe. But again, just labeling, just projection onto what's in Buddhist philosophy would be called a valid basis of imputation. So there is the there is again the causes and condition, the parts upon which we project the label Joe Biden. But again, it's not just that we're just projecting this. We're projecting so much meaning, and we're projecting all these qualities, and then we think that's what we think they're inherently there. Like, I might think that inherently Joe Biden is a swell guy, and then I react with attachment and I like him and I want to promote him, whatever. Someone else, they think he's inherently evil. It's like he was already inherently evil, and they just came along, and this evil just is like radiated out from Joe Biden, and now they're angry. And of course they're angry because he's inherently bad, so how could they be anything but angry? But what they're not seeing is that, they actually projected all this onto him, and then it kind of bounces back on them and they get upset. So we're doing this whole thing ourselves. and we run around, get upset about things and get attached to things, and the things we get attached to is what we projected out there in the first place. So it's if it wasn't so sad, it would be kind of hilarious. Yeah.
Is that what everything is? I mean, really, your whole routine, you cycle through the day, and that's what it seems it all is. Because if you're projecting, if you have thoughts about every single thing in life, and you're projecting it on, and any little thing that you encounter in life.
It's, in a sense, it's like 100% your own trip.
That's insane. That is a thought. So then if your own trip, you can have complete control over it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're doing it to yourself, literally. It's not Trump doing it to you or whomever.
So if I had nice thoughts about Trump or Biden, then that would change. Would that make me a happy person then, or should I have no feeling about them one way or another, or not have any opinion about it? Be neutral.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So this is where it gets where you have to be really careful, because it's not that, like, it's not like nothing exists. So there is this relative conventional reality. There is a Joe Biden, there is a Martin, there is a planet Earth, there is a Milky Way galaxy. It's just that they don't exist in the way we think they do. But the first step would be, if you want to be a happier person, then the first thing would be so let's take Trump as an example. So if you have all this anger and resentment, and that's actually, it's not very helpful, and it's also not very realistic if you start analyzing the way I just did. So, but then, you might want to instead start cultivating understanding and compassion. So, maybe you can understand all the causes and conditions that came together and created this phenomena that we now label Trump. And maybe, if you could understand deeply all the things that has come together and created the Trump that we're reacting to, then that understanding, that wider perspective would necessarily facilitate more love, more understanding. You still wouldn't agree with maybe stuff he's doing, but you would change your perspective of what's going on, what's actually happening. and then you could move in a direction of greater clarity, deeper understanding, which in turn leads to, just naturally leads to more compassion, more love, more patience, the ability to, you know, make wiser choices, and also, so when things become less solid, less heavy, less real, there's like a freedom, you know, if things become a bit more spacious, a bit more less fixed, you know, a bit more workable. So that's what, the deeper you understand emptiness, or yeah, this, like how things actually do exist, there's freedom in that. There's like, yeah, you can just relax because it's much more spacious, much more open, and much more workable than we kind of initially thought. So yeah, so it's not, you shouldn't, yeah, so yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So the thought that I have of, let's say, Trump, or something obviously created in my head based on whatever I gained, my own experiences in life. So that really is the projection. So just like you said, it bounces back on you, because really it's just your own thoughts that you've created about this person in reality, maybe being anger, being whatever it is. And that's something I have to deal with, not Trump, obviously.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's what we always try to fix the object of our, you know, anger or aversion. But that's, yeah, so we have all these, let's say we have all these outer enemies that are causing us so much trouble. But the only way to get rid of all our enemies is to transform our mind. You know, that's a realistic way of you know, not having any enemies. You know, getting rid of all the difficult people. You just you just cultivate patience and compassion and love, and then, well, all the difficult people will eventually go away. You know, for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, there are no difficult people. There are no enemies. You know, that doesn't mean he can't separate right from wrong, and, you know, he can be really tough and hard on someone, correcting their behavior, but that's not because he dislikes them or thinks they're evil or views them as a, you know, nasty, horrible, difficult person or an enemy. So yeah, so by transforming our mind, that's the only realistic way of getting rid of, you know, problems or nasty people or, you know, whatever it is.
So the only problems we have with other people is really with ourselves. It's not really with them.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes. But that's
somebody has a bad behavior. I mean, it happens, right? They have bad, or they curse you, whatever the case. They make you feel bad for a particular in a particular time and space. That is not them.
And no, my reaction to it. Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, no. So say, for example, if you met someone that you knew they're clearly insane, like a psychotic person, and they're just yelling all this stuff at you, they're being horrible and nasty. I mean, your reaction to that, if you knew they're crazy, is probably, you know, there would be a compassionate reaction, like, how can I help this guy?
You are correct.
Yeah, you wouldn't take it personally. It wouldn't make you angry. It wouldn't ruin your day. In fact, it would actually increase your love. It would increase your compassion. But then someone else says, "Wow, why did you cut your hair like that?" And, you know, your whole world collapses because they're so mean, they're so nasty, they're so horrible. How can they say that to me? So ultimately, yes, it's no one can inject anger into our minds. We do anger ourselves. You know, the nasty words or the certain behavior can be a catalyst or a trigger, but the anger is in our minds. It's our anger, ultimately. But having said that, though, it's extremely important to realize, you know, where am I at? You know, of course, if people treat me badly, I get sad and upset. So I also have to have, you know, great compassion with myself and great patience, because what I'm talking about now, this is like, you know, bodhisattva level reality. I mean, if you're a Buddha, then sure, you can walk around and not get upset and just have compassion for everything and everyone. But I mean, it's kind of a road to get there, and you have to be realistic that this is where I'm at. So, you know, it's realistic to set boundaries and expect people to treat you, you know, with a modicum of civility and yeah. So it's, yeah, we shouldn't, even though it's ultimately true that yes, our anger is our anger, we need to be realistic and kind with ourselves and see that, you know, I can see that ultimately this is true, but you know, in my reality, I still have to take care of myself and protect myself from horrible people, etc. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. Does that make sense or?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's your own mind creates your own world, basically. If I wanted to say it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, it's not just it is simple, but it's harder to actually, you know, live and try and create and like you said, a nice space for yourself. It's a challenge. That's what life's challenge is.
I can see myself doing it just in like traffic. If somebody honks at me, I have no idea what I did. It doesn't matter if I was, you know, I can actually see the anger arise just by the honk. And then I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Why are you angry with somebody over them, you know, doing one action? So yeah, it's ridiculous that we allow ourselves to be affected by somebody else's actions so instantly, you know. Turn around and flip the bird, or you know, engage in road rage, all of that, you know, just because they, you know, they honk the horn at you. You know, I have no idea what I did, but yeah, I can see it instantly. I don't like that person who I become in that moment. Yeah. So now I'm just like, whatever. They're having a bad day.
Yeah.
They're in a hurry. They're having a bad day.
Yeah, and it's someone told me this story at some point. They were like riding the subway, I think, and there was this there's this mother on the train, and she had two kids, and the kids were kind of running around and you know, causing problems for the other passengers, whatever. I mean, I don't know exactly what was going on, but people were getting irritated and upset, and then someone went up to her and told her, you have to look after your kids, and you know, basically you're a horrible mother. And she said, well, their dad just died, you know, we're on the way to the hospital, and I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted, and the kids are, you know, they're trying to process this, and we're literally on the way to the hospital now and you know, instantly the perception of everyone in that train would have switched like that, you know. But we always think that our interpretation is just reality. we don't even see that it's our interpretation of what's going on. Yeah, you're muted, Sheila, if you're.
The first time I was at Tushita in Dharamsala, there was this young man, and every time we would stand in line for meals, he would come and stand in front of me. He would butt in line and stand in front of me. And I was so angry at him. I was so angry. And I had come up with, because you cannot speak, you know, you're in silence. And I was so angry with him. I had come up with this entire story about why he was butting in line. And about 6 days into the course, I found out that his chore that he had to do was washing the dishes. And so he needed to get in and eat before everybody else so that he could wash dishes. And I had this whole entire story just created. And then I felt like a moron. It turns out he's a wonderful guy. We still talk.
Yeah. And I mean, it's amazing when you have that kind of experience, because then it becomes so obvious, you know, what we're doing to ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, so then, and it's you know, at that level, it's easier to see that it's, you know, just our projection or just our labeling. But then, you know, according to Buddhist philosophy, it like goes like all the way down. I don't remember where it says. There's in some indigenous cosmology, there is so the idea is that the world is resting atop a turtle or something, and that turtle is, you know, sitting on top of another turtle, and then, you know, someone asks them, so what's the Maya? You know, what's it's the Mayas, but what's like below that turtle, and they go, no, it's turtles all the way down. You know, so and that's the problem, because we're looking for that thing that actually ultimately inherently exists, you know, that the thing that the last turtle kind of rests on, but in Buddhist philosophy there is, yeah, it's turtles all the way down. And I don't know if you saw, there was a Nobel Prize awarded recently in physics, and so basically what the guys that, because I think they were all guys, anyways, the thing they proved is that so there's this thing called entanglement, where you have two photons, for example, like these particles or electrons, and they have this relationship together that means that if you affect one of them, instantly the other gets affected. So, and what they've proven is that if you take those entangled photons and you move them across the entire universe, they've shown that if you then measure this one, then instantly the paired particle that's on the other side of the other side of the universe, it instantly has the same state, you could say. So so there are two things that are weird here. One is that the photon doesn't have the state we're looking for until we observe it, and then it kind of is forced to, there's something called spin, for example, that can be up or down. So when you look, okay, this photon had a spin that was down, then the other photon at the other side of the universe immediately also, well, actually it will have a spin that's up, because it's always going to be opposite. And if you look and this has a spin that's right, then immediately this has a spin that's left. But it didn't have that before you look, but when you look, you instantly affect the particle that's on the other side of the universe. So I'm yeah, I'm not very good at explaining that. But what the physicists have concluded is that on this quantum level, there is no location. So there's they say that reality is non-local, which means that there is no such thing ultimately as place or distance or location. And they're not Buddhists, so they're not saying that these things are merely labeled. But for a Buddhist Madhyamika philosopher, it's there's of course, time merely labeled, space merely labeled. Of course, you're just figuring out we had the Buddha, and then we thought about this and we figured it out a couple of thousand years ago that yes, of course, there's no inherently existent space. There's no inherently existent time. It's like you're just figuring this out now. But it's kind of cool that even modern science is coming to this realization that in fact there is no space-time. It's just, again, a way of speaking. And it's completely mind-blowing because I'm on my way to a conference here, and the conference is not here, it's over there, and I'm gonna have to drive in my car for another 20 minutes. So it certainly seems very real, but it's not. It's literally not real, which isn't helping me because I'm still gonna have to go there and do stuff, some of which I enjoy and some of which I don't enjoy. So what are you gonna do? We're all stuck in samsara. We're stuck in space and time, and we have problems. And but having any kind of understanding of emptiness kind of opens up this little space where freedom can grow. Because if it's just all made up, in a sense, then why be so uptight about it, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, it was I like it when you ask questions, because I feel like I'm just going off of these tangents sometimes. So are there any more reflections or thoughts from your end? Yeah, see, Janet has potentially a question. Sheila says you can type them in the chat, which is, that works.
No, she had to leave. Her.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry I was late. I have to do something, and I'll see you later, Shayla. Bye, Martin.
Bye. Yeah, but maybe maybe that's a good place to stop then for this session. I hope I've given you some food for thought, at least.
I think that it's time for me to go back into my Vajrasattva practice and start working on my crankiness again, because I'm starting to see that kind of creep out. I was doing so well, but yeah, it's definitely starting to time to go back into it again. Thanks. And I love these small groups because then I get to talk and ask questions.
Yeah. And I really appreciate it's good that you know, just at any point just stop me, because I think it's much more valuable also when there's this, you know, interaction, and also I know that I'm actually speaking to something that's relevant for you. So that's, thank you for interacting and asking questions and all of that. That makes it much more fun also. Yeah, just one last comment on that. I think it's good to realize also that, like, at the, like, if you have this crankiness, or if it's, you know, if there's irritation arising or whatever, just also realize that, you know, at the bottom of that is always like the seed of wisdom, or so it's not like these emotions are just useless and we just need to get rid of them, or, you know, we certainly don't want to repress them or, you know, pretend they're not there. So it's also good to really, you know, investigate and use that emotion as a guide to where it's pointing you to something that you kind of need to investigate, or something that yeah, there is some wisdom, like at the bottom of all our, even our anger and all of that stuff. So so instead of yeah, see it as a really interesting, exciting exploration, rather than, you know, I shouldn't be this, you know, I'm a Buddhist now, so I can't be cranky like this or whatever. Just, yeah, just be curious and fascinated by your like, wow, where is this coming from? This is so interesting. You know, take that approach and don't be too hard on yourself, I guess.
Thank you. I appreciate the tools.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's we can dedicate whatever, you know, whatever insights arose from us being together. It's, I mean, it's so rare for people to just spend time thinking about these things at all. I mean, most people just run around and they believe in absolutely everything they see as solid and real, and they don't even realize that their mind has any part of that equation at all. And that's like the purest definition of bondage, or, you know, like the opposite of freedom, because there's no wiggle room then. You're absolutely 100% stuck. So just even, you know, opening up for these kind of ideas and starting to want to engage with them, and, you know, make them into a practice where we explore them in our lives. That's, I mean, that's huge. That puts us in like it's like a tiny percentage of the world's population that has any inclination to do anything like that. So it's huge. So we've generated all this positive energy. It's going to affect us. It's going to affect the people we interact with. It's going to spread out like ripples on water, and we can just dedicate whatever, you know, whatever virtue has come out of this time together, just dedicate it to others, and may it benefit them, and may it you know, lead them away from suffering and towards greater happiness and joy and ease, and ultimately maybe all the way to enlightenment. So yeah, we can dedicate, just, again, it's all empty, so we just release it. We release our grasp of it and just let it go, and hopefully it will bring benefit in the world. And with that, I thank you so much for being here today, and I will see you hopefully next week.